Let's go to this conversation now. A reminder that stage 6 rolling blackouts kicked in at around 4 p.m. and they will last until 10 p.m. Thereafter, stage 4 will be implemented from 10 until midnight. Now, of course, this is all happening as pressure mounts on government to do something about the crisis. And some energy experts are saying that the country's power problems can, in fact, be resolved. Let's explore this further now with Hilton Trollip, who's the UCT's Global Risk Governance Program. Thank you so much, Hilton. Really, it is one of those that has gotten a lot of South Africans upset, and some saying that it's man-made, in fact. But when we look at the energy crisis, we often only talk about Eskom, but at the same time, while Eskom is a very important player, there's also conversations around the Public Enterprises Department, Mineral Resources Department, as well as NERSA as well. Should they all not be at the table right now, providing the nation with regular updates on how they plan to resolve this crisis?
Good afternoon, Bongela. Thanks for having me on. Yes, in answer to your question, we should be working together, all of those departments and others, including the experts at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is the government's premier research organization meant to deal with issues such as modeling energy, including the experts at the University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch, etc., at the National Business Initiative. We should all be working together. But in my view, who's missing in action here is a piece of legislation called the Electricity Regulation Act of 2006. And it states quite clearly that the Minister of Minerals, Resources and Energy is meant to put a plan on the table and to ensure the reliable and continued supply of sufficient energy. And then that same department is required to make that plan work. Equally, the legislation says not anybody can come and just connect to the grid. The department is in charge of that. So that is the organizing department about this. So there's been much finger pointing. I don't want to point fingers. I want to say that the CSIR, the National Business Initiative, UCT, and very specifically all of the work done by the modelers from those groups, the networks of energy modelers in South Africa, is well summarized in a recent report by Meridian Economics, which explains quite clearly that had we not stopped our very successful renewable energy independent power producer program in 2015, for 7 years, no new contracts have been signed in terms of that very successful program. Had we continued with that program and put 5 megawatts of renewables onto the system, most of the load shedding would not be happening that we've had recently. Yes, Eskom wage negotiations and industrial action and illegal action have made the situation worse, but the situation is already untenable. And in addition to the modelers showing that we could have avoided this load shedding if we had just continued putting this 5 megawatts onto the system, what the report also shows is that if we now put together a plan to get this 5 megawatts onto the system, plus some batteries, plus extend the diesel tanks at the peakers, and put some more peakers onto the system, this can all be done in a matter of 2 or 3 years if we get that plan accepted on the table and implemented. Instead, what we're finding is the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, their officials are publishing articles, for example, in the Daily Maverick, which actually attack the people making these suggestions, wanting to work together. Eminent academics, modelers, engineers who have written articles in peer-reviewed journals have been accused of receiving foreign funding by the minister and undermining his department. So I am sure, Bongela, and I've worked in this for 35 years. Firstly, the plan that is on the table in Meridian Economics report is eminently implementable, but that to implement that plan, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy and the minister are going to have to change their attitude in terms of working together and accepting the responsibility allocated to them by the Electricity Regulation Act and the new generation regulations under that act, and also accept their responsibility for not implementing that so far. So, and I'm sure of this.
And Hilton, one of the things, when one really looks at the power situation, for example, you go back to that State of the Nation address by the President in 2020, talking about how municipalities that are in good standing will be able to have, be able to independently try to resolve some of the power crisis through the independent power producers. But one looks at, what you're saying and how slow this process has been. I also wonder then, what does it mean for municipalities who are not creditworthy, who are not seen in good standing, as we've seen in the Auditor General's report, because that also needs to be taken into account seriously.
I couldn't agree with you more. We have a very sort of two-stage economy with some municipalities in good financial standing, their electricity systems working, and others that actually their electricity systems have been bankrupt now for more than 10 years. And because they're bankrupt, they haven't been able, firstly, to do the maintenance they need to on the system, so they break down more and more. But one of the most important reasons why they're bankrupt is they don't have the skills in the municipalities to even do the billing necessary to collect the money when they do sell electricity. So we have a really serious skills shortage, and we can't go into all of that now. State capture, cadre deployment, etc., has hollowed out the municipalities. One suggestion that has been on the table from the 1994 dispensation is for Eskom to take over the municipalities, the electricity departments of those municipalities. And in my belief, many of them have got to such a stage, they don't even have an electrical engineer in the whole department. They don't have an accountant. The stage has come possibly where for those specific municipalities, we need Eskom to step in and help them.
And some have said that maybe it's time for the country to also look at, using solar and wind energy on a larger scale. Could that help?
Yes, absolutely. The plan I was talking about, which is the many plans, the many model plans, and I say there's a broad range of people. The National Business Initiative last year got together and wrote an electricity power report for South Africa. And what that report says is that a renewables dominant system makes sense. What that means is that from now, for the next at least 10 years, it doesn't make sense to build anything else other than PV and wind. Coal doesn't make sense. Gas doesn't make sense. But the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy continue to push coal and gas and nuclear. They've had a coal independent power producer procurement round in 2015, which took 2 years to fail. And while it was failing, the renewable energy, the wind and PV program, was stopped in one way or another. So we got nothing. We didn't get the coal, and we didn't get the renewable energy. And the current Meridian report, the UCT report, says that what makes sense now is to, as soon as possible, get the wind and PV on. And I can assure you, Bongela, there are financiers and project developments and technology suppliers lined up to do this. They can't wait, but they're being stopped. We need to free the system up. That is what is required now. It's urgent. This electricity shortage is busy destroying our economy, and the responsibility is not being accepted by the government department that is named in legislation as being responsible. They're blaming public enterprises, they're blaming Eskom, etc., instead of accepting their responsibility and getting on with the job.
All right, let's see then what plays out in the coming days, and let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your views there. That was Hilton Trollip from the UCT Global Risk Governance Program. And of course, with load shedding in winter, a lot of people say that, it poses an even greater difficult situation.